I love that song. There's another in the fire, standing next to me. There's another in the water, holding back the sea. God gave that song to Fiona and I a few weeks ago, and it has been such a gift. When I was little, our family spent lots of time with our nana, my mum's mum. My papa, her husband, died when I was just 2 years old, and Nana would spend every Sabbath, every Wednesday with us, and then lots of Sundays as well. Nana died just after I turned 14, but I have really awesome memories of her. She was a nana who only saw goodness in us. She saw nothing bad. She only saw good. She only saw light. I know that on some days it drove my mother a little bit crazy. I remember her taking me away when I was about 11 years old to a little beach town on the Coromandel called Katoona. We went with my cousin who was 5 or 6 years old at the time and her other nana. And we were just having a great time playing at the beach, collecting shells and being spoilt by our nanas. It was the middle of the first night there. I woke up and I needed to go to the toilet. And that was just all a bit scary for me because it was really dark and I didn't know the house. And so I was lying there trying to make that feeling go away, but it wouldn't. And so I finally got up the courage. And I walked into this little toilet room, but I didn't want to turn on the light, because it's so dark and you don't want that sort of brightness. So in my sleepy stupor, I walked into the room. I just flicked the door shut behind me. I sat down and then I looked up to see my 5-year-old cousin standing, staring at me behind the toilet door. She had gone to the toilet herself and then she was too scared to go back to her room. So she had literally frozen behind the toilet door. Well, you can imagine I screamed, so she screamed, and then the nanas joined the party and look, it was a fun time in the middle of the night. And I think it might be why I've always just been a little bit scared of the dark. If I'm kind of honest, I think I still am. When Richard is away, I can lie in bed hearing every sound, considering every scenario from every stupid crime show I have ever watched. And I can get myself into the state of being too afraid to move. The darkness, our winter, can be a really scary place. But the reality is that we all experience winter. We all experience darkness. Sometimes, on some days, we even feel surrounded by it. And although there is nothing inherently bad about the dark, when we neglect, deny, or resent the darkness that comes into our lives, it can fester like a wound and become so much worse than it ever should have become. The truth is, our darkness, our winter, our pain can serve as a profound opportunity for discovery, for transformation, and for healing. But it can only offer us this when we are willing to see it for what it is. And when we're willing to meet that darkness with light, compassion, and love. And that often takes a whole lot of time. It takes patience, it takes trust, and it takes a willingness to sit with the pain before the light can begin to once again brighten up the darkness. As Alexander Shire so beautifully puts it, when we go to the deepest dark, that's where the grace of fresh light will come forth in us by our courage to walk to the place of the deepest dark. Winter teaches us that the only way to fully enjoy the power of the season is to surrender to it and to learn from what it has to offer us. So this is where we're going to sit. It's what we're going to explore, what we're going to wrestle with for the next 5 weeks in our series, Wilderness. To begin, we're going to take a look at an iconic Bible figure, a real wilderness man, a real Bear Grylls type of guy. And before we do that, I just want us to get a quick snapshot of what's been going on in history so we know what we're stepping into at this point in history. So Israel has been taken over. It's been taken over by the Assyrian Empire, and hundreds of years of chaos goes by. At the end of Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, the Jews are marrying pagans. They are abusing their wives, and they're no longer tithing. The priests are neglecting the temple. They're not even teaching the people about God anymore. Then in 333 BC, Israel falls to the Greeks. And in 323 BC, it falls to the Egyptians. Jewish law and the priesthood remain more or less intact until Syria captures Israel in 204 BC. And they persecute the Jews and they sell the priesthood. And their fighting continues until the Romans gain control of Israel in 63 BC. As the New Testament opens, Herod, a descendant of Esau, is king, and the priesthood is now motivated by politics instead of God and his word. And this results in the forming of 2 major groups. We've got the Sadducees and the Pharisees. The Sadducees favour the liberal attitudes and practices of the Greeks. They hold to the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, with regard to religion, but they don't think that God should have any part in governing the nation. The Pharisees, on the other hand, are conservative zealots who, with the help of scribes, develop religious law to the point where the concern and care of people has essentially become meaningless. These years blinded and deafened the nation to the point where most of the Jews can't even consider the concept of a Messiah that would come to serve. Right when things are as hopeless as they can possibly be. When God's promise is as out of reach as it can possibly get, God knows he has to step in to get their attention. When all hope is lost, when nobody is expecting it, now is God's time to act. And he sends a man that some of us are familiar with. This man had great potential inside him. It didn't arrive one day out of the sky. It was always inside of him. We're going to read about him at the beginning of Mark chapter 1, and I'm going to read you verses 2 to 8. It began just as the prophet Isaiah had written, "Look, I'm sending my messenger ahead of you. He will prepare your way. He's a voice shouting in the wilderness. Prepare the way for the Lord's coming. Clear the road for him." This messenger was John the Baptist. He was in the wilderness and he preached that people should be baptized to show they had repented of their sins and turned to God to be forgiven. All of Judea, including the people of Jerusalem, went out to see and hear John, and they confessed their sins, and he baptized them in the Jordan River. His clothes were woven from camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locusts and wild honey. John announced, "Someone is coming who is greater than I am, so much greater that I'm not even worthy to untie the straps of his sandals. I baptize you with water, but he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit." I want you to imagine John the Baptist coming home for dinner. What does that look like? What does he look like? You know, he sure isn't arriving in an Armani suit. He'd probably look a whole lot more like one of these guys that I've got on the screen from Duck Dynasty. Is it scary that I know these guys? This is what it is to be married to Richard, people. Duck Dynasty. What would we make John for dinner? He'd be like, just whip me up some locusts and some honey. I worry if I've got to feed somebody gluten-free, let alone locusts and honey. And what about polite conversation? Is that even possible with John? He's not exactly the answer to political correctness. This guy calls a spade a spade. And then our guests arrive, you know, apart from John, some religious people. And instead of engaging in polite conversation about work with these guys or chatting to them about their perspective on Jesus, John calls them a bunch of poisonous snakes that will soon be consumed by the flames of hell. It wouldn't be awkward at all. You see, John didn't care about the good and the great in the land. He cared only about God and the purpose and calling that God had over his life. John's purpose was to call people back to their commitment to God. His straight talking eventually cost him his head. John arrived into the world when it was in such darkness, when there was no hope, no light, no peace, just chaos, despair, and darkness. I've got this pretty bulb with me today. And you know, I could spend the next 5 minutes telling you about the great potential that this bulb has. This bulb has the potential to take a dark area and make it light. It has the potential to change the atmosphere, the potential to where you cannot see, allow you to see. This has the potential to change the dynamics and the space in which it is placed. But the whole time that I am holding it in my hand, the fact is, it's just words. Because until I take this bulb to the purpose for which it is designed, then all of its potential is locked up on the inside of it. But when I take this bulb, when I take this potential to the purpose for which it is designed, when I place it inside its purpose, everything about it begins to change. But the sad reality is that so much of the church sits thinking about this, sits talking, planning, and dreaming about this. But we haven't been willing to take the journey to this. Or on our way to this, we're in a fight because the enemy is hell-bent on keeping our potential away from our purpose. He can't stop the fact that there is potential in us because God's already put it there. But he can try to sabotage the journey where our potential becomes useful in the hands of God. You see, the devil is on a mission to keep these two things separate, to cause us to respond to our potential in areas that make no difference, to sit on our potential because we are too afraid to move. At all costs, he wants to stop us from making the journey from our potential to finding its purpose, so he just keeps throwing darkness at us. The Bible is filled with people full of potential. But they had to go on a journey. They had to go on a journey walking into something scary or difficult or different or outside their comfort zone or understanding. But the journey every step of the way was moving them from being hidden on a hill to a place where they would be seen, to a place where what was inside of them would be revealed. The biggest fight in our lives is the fight from potential to purpose. And it's not a fight that we fight once. Sadly, it's often a fight that we fight over and over again. There'll be seasons in life where you think, really? I'm back here again? Yep, you are. And you're going to have to walk it again. Because what God knows is that there is brighter in us. There is more in us. But we've got to take the walk from potential to purpose. We have to take the walk because in the walk, there is so much that we can learn. Fiona has learned so much.
Started coming to Papster.
Take a look at Fiona's story because she's learnt so much in her journey. So let's start that again and hear her story. Thanks, guys.
I started coming to Papster in 2013. I was starting to watch First Light Channel, which is the Seventh-day Adventist channel, and I learnt about the Sabbath day, and I thought, okay, I need to start observing the Sabbath day. And so I looked through the phone book and I found Papster. And yeah, I started coming along and it was awesome. Even the first time I came, there was someone that befriended me and sat with me, and yeah, it was really, really nice. Made me want to come back again, and here I am, 5 years later. I got involved with Life Group first, which has been really, really awesome. I've made some pretty close connections there. And then I started on the welcoming team. It's an awesome experience, yes, I really like that. I've enjoyed being part of that. I had a really bad cough, and I went to the doctors and they were concerned that it might be asthma, and so they sent me to Super Clinic and a specialist, and she said right from the word go, she said something's not right here. So they sent me for an urgent specialist appointment, who sent me for an urgent CT scan. The diagnosis was small cell lung cancer, and that it was terminal, and that I'd have a year and a half to 2 years to live. And I was just stunned, just numb, didn't have any emotion, just a lot of mental process. You know, where do I go from here? What do I do? I was born in Wellington. We lived there for 2 years, and then my father decided he wanted to come up to Auckland and get a job up here, which he secured. And then on the trip back to Wellington, my father was killed in a car accident. I was 2, and my mother was pregnant with my brother. So life changed dramatically for my mum and for us at that time, because Mum developed a mental illness over time. I think I was 5 when that happened. We were tramped around the country, going to family while she was in hospital, till eventually she was committed when I was 12, and then my brother and I went to a children's home in Masterton, where we stayed for 4 years. It was supposed to be a Christian home, but it wasn't. Not on any scale, really. Abuse. I think I was looking for a father figure, and that was misread. yeah, so it affected me badly. Affected my confidence, affected my willing to live. It just affected my whole life. We were there till I was 16, and because of financial reasons, they had to close the home down, and that's when we were forced to leave, and circumstances changed again. What was going to happen was that they were going to send me out to work at 16 and support my brother. My father's side of the family didn't want that for us, so they fostered us. They had 3 teenagers of their own, and because we were basically who we were at teenagers, she couldn't change us, and it just didn't work out. So we were forced again. I was forced to leave and start my own life at 18, and yeah. From 18, I experienced a lot of worthlessness and confidence, and I guess because my mother had a mental illness, I thought I was dumb, stupid, weak, all those things, and it affected my entire life, really. I got mentally unwell at 23, and I was diagnosed with bipolar, which I had a lot of depression through that time. Mainly depression. There were times when I was manic, and that was fantastic. I love those times, but it sent me to hospital. But the depression was the worst. It was kind of like, yeah, I just didn't want anything in life. There was nothing that interested me. It was just all about getting through, really. For the most part of the times when I got unwell and ended up in hospital, usually no job, no house, in hospital, not having nothing. And I had to rebuild my life, start over again, and get a job, get a place. And I finally find my feet, and hello, stress would come along, and I'd be back in hospital, and I'd be back in the same situation. And so I'd have to climb myself out of it again, find a job, find a place, and yeah, start working. And it got to the stage where I couldn't do office work anymore because I couldn't explain away the jobs that I'd left. Christianity wasn't a part of my life. However, when I was in the children's home, it was financed by a Methodist church. But really, I didn't take too much notice of religion at that stage. We used to spend the money on cigarettes that we were supposed to spend at church. It really didn't. I had no concept of God at that stage. It was about when I first gave my heart to the Lord when I was 21. I was at a Great Barrier Christian camp, and I was listening to the sermons, and on the last sermon that he had, I was late for it. And I walked down the middle of the aisle, and the preacher had his finger pointed straight at me, but he didn't know I was there because he had his eyes closed, and just said, I pray for those that are lost, that are here. And I thought, oh no, this is my calling. If I don't answer, he may never call me again. So that was my first experience with God, and yeah, it was great for 6 months. And then the church let me down. Basically, I started smoking again, and they had a go at me about that and some other stuff, and basically I was called a liar. So I moved on from that church and never went back to God. For all my life, if I had any desires in life, it was to find somebody and settle down, somebody that I could love and that loved me, really. And I thought I met that man when I was 33. He was a very good man, but I never felt good enough, never. And that manifested in so many bad ways that by 37 I was heartbroken and emotionally stressed out, and probably went to hospital about 4 times that year, where I eventually lost my job, and again in the same situation, no place, no job. Found myself a place to stay, but it was a very, very dark time, and I really hated myself, really, really hated myself. And I thought, what can I do? I can't live with myself, I just who I am. And I thought, well, I could try and do things for other people that might make up for who I am. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well come back to the Lord. So I gave my heart back to the Lord, and I'd like to say things got better from there on in, but they didn't. Not really. In the relationship with God, I guess I didn't talk to him. I didn't know what communication was all about. I didn't know how to express myself. I never really had that person that I could open up to, and so I just didn't know how. So I used to tell God what I thought he wanted to hear, and we'd struggle on by, and there'd be times when I was so depressed that I wasn't interested in talking to him or even knowing him, really. But then there were the good times where I felt good and he felt close, and so it was a fragmented relationship for quite some time. I had my life group, always ready to just listen. Even though I didn't open up a lot to them, they were always there, interested in what was going on for me. And I just have felt the support of everyone surrounding me and doing the best that they can to get me through this and walk alongside me. And it's been great. I've never found that in a faith community before. It's been fantastic. And the people I've got to know, over my time at Petster, I mean, I'm amazed at such genuine people who like me and don't judge me. Yeah, I love it there. When I came to radiation, I was scared. I didn't think it was going to work. And I can always remember those radiation buzzers going off to say that the radiation was going, and feeling really scared. And it was then that I opened up and told Jesus exactly how I felt. And yeah, I guess it's just been, when I had cancer, I just felt surrounded by him, and for some reason I was able to open up. He was the first person that I could ever be me with, that I could tell him who I was and how I felt about myself. And he understood and didn't judge me. And that relationship's just growing. And I know he's there every day. And yeah, the apple of his eye. And yeah, it's just getting better and better. I was anointed at my life group, which was really precious to me. And Karyn gave me a song, and I look back on that after the radiation, and I mean, the song's called Another in the Fire, and I think about those times when I was in radiation and I was so scared. I thought, yeah, you were there when I was feeling like, I don't know where this is going. I still don't know where it's going. But it's okay. It's okay. Because I've got Jesus and he's got me. And, you know, okay, cancer may be life-threatening for me, but I mean, not to have Jesus would be no life at all anyway. So, hey, it's all a big unknown. I don't know where God's leading me through this. I'm in the dark. I don't know the time, the cancer. I've got no idea where this is leading me or what's going to happen in my life, but it's okay. It's just, I've got Jesus and he's got me. My name is Fiona and this is my story.
Can you stand for us, Fiona? Would you honour her with me? Thanks for sharing your story, Fiona. Thanks for being so incredibly brave and vulnerable to us. You know, I've had the opportunity to sit and hear that several times, and it still hugely impacts me. You know, I asked Fiona to tell her story because I thought she's been diagnosed with lung cancer, and that's her winter. And when she told us her story, I discovered that life had been winter for Fiona and cancer was her spring. Cancer was where she found God, and where that grew that relationship. That's the power of our God, that he can take something so dark and so hard and can inject love and light and compassion into it. You know, John the Baptist learned about humility. He learned what it is to have a servant's heart. He learned what it looked like to surrender. And when the religious leaders came and questioned him, he could have replied, I am the forerunner of Christ. I have come to prepare the way for the people of the Lord. He could have said he was the greatest prophet. He could have said, that guy is my cousin. He could have drawn attention to himself. But instead, he says, I'm just a voice. I'm a messenger. Jesus is the big deal. God is who you need. When John said that he was just a voice, what he was saying was that he recognized that Jesus is God and he is not. God called and commissioned him to do this, and he did it. John never changed course. He didn't decide that this wasn't what he wanted to do. Rather, he spent his life preparing for his calling, and he gave his life in pursuit of it. He offered total surrender to the will of God, no matter what others thought and no matter what others said. He stayed the course and he plugged his potential into God's purpose for his life. And he charged the darkness with the light inside of him and everything he had. You know, the scary but also incredibly awesome thing about God is that he's often working on our heart, on our lives, and on our potential for years to set us up for his purpose and his calling. You know, at every stage of my relationship with God, it's stunned me with what he's asked me to do. 14 years ago, when I felt like God was calling me to full-time ministry. At that time, I didn't understand how he could use me to fulfill any purpose. Then 8 years ago, when Norman began to lead here, I actually took the opportunity to allow fear to cause me to step back. I doubted myself, and I doubted what God was asking me to do. And my comfort zone has always been admin. It's the one thing that I'm comfortable saying I'm good at. So I sidelined myself. I knew that admin wasn't Norman's strength. So I told him that if he wanted, I would take that part of his role. I knew that I'd be good at holding up his arms. So that's what I did. I did that for 6 years. But what I didn't realize then, but I've come to see, is that God was growing my potential. He was adding things that I would need to fulfill a purpose I had no idea was coming. And one of the biggest things I've learnt in this journey of leadership, especially over the last 20 odd months, is that a lot of people want to share a lot of thoughts about pretty much everything related to leading a church. And often all those thoughts differ from each other. And that has caused me to second guess everything, to second guess my ability, my wisdom, my knowledge, and my strength. But what I discovered really early on is that the best thing I can do is plug my light into the source that gives it power. To sit with God and hear his voice, to hear his calling, to hear his purpose, and make sure that I go and do whatever that is. Because what if our response to God, church, shifted from I'm just a girl, I'm just some guy, I can't do this, I don't know enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. What if we instead shifted that thinking to I am a child of God? I am becoming what God has called me to be. And I'm no longer afraid because I can see God in the miracle of providing mattresses for the marae. I see God transforming Fiona's life. I see God walk us into the community to the point that the New Zealand police have asked us to send as many families as they can for support and for help. What if we said to the darkness, I know that you're loud, but you have no idea how loud my God is. I know that you're scary, darkness, but my God brings peace. My God brings strength. I know that you are taunting me and know that you are telling me that I'm not good enough, but God tells me over and over again who I am. I know we have days when all we see is the dry, parched earth of the wilderness closing in around us. But we choose to see you, God. We choose to see the life, the green, the light in the middle of our darkness. We choose to believe that we are chosen, that we are set apart, and that we are called. Amen. We are destined to do great things. We are destined to charge the darkness with the Most High God. We are overcomers because He has already overcome. We are warriors because He, our God, is leading the battle. We are children of God. We are who we are because of who He is, and we are not alone. We don't go through winter alone, church. There's another in the fire, standing next to us. There's another in the water, holding back the sea. We charge the darkness with a light that will never be extinguished. Let's claim it as we sing. It's time to take the walk from potential to purpose, to wake up what is dormant on the inside of us. It's time to charge the darkness, church. Some of us have forgotten who we are. We are not our family tree. We are not our past mistake. We are not what that person is speaking over us. We are children of God. And if we are a child of God, we are on a journey to waken all that He has placed inside of us. He has placed greatness there, and He wants to unleash that light and charge the darkness with us. Let's choose today, in whatever season we find ourselves in, to move forward, plugged in, trusting and allowing Him to light up the world around us. Would you pray with me? God, thank you that you bring light to our darkness, light to our pain, light to our winter. Thank you that no matter what the devil throws at us to try to slow us down from connecting our potential to your purpose, that you are always stronger, that you are always braver, that you give us whatever we need. And God, today we just pray for the courage and the determination and the commitment to continue just to keep walking that journey, God, to surround ourselves with people here that will love on us and keep pouring into us so that we have that strength to keep walking in you and charging the darkness with your incredible light. We love you.